tensions in the Middle East have reached a boiling point. Carrying on from recent catastrophic events in Iran and Turkey, they have decided to form an alliance with the Houthi rebels in retaliation against the UK and US. This partnership has rocked the international landscape. This decision comes as a result of 85 sites in Iran and Syria being attacked by the US. Labeled as the retaliation for the killing of 3 US soldiers, the US have said that this is just the beginning of its response. The American forces are using this opportunity to send a clear message, stating that when Americans are attacked, they will respond forcefully and appropriately. Speaking on NBC the day following 2 separate attacks by the US and the UK against Houthi targets in Yemen during the night, Jake Sullivan 3 times turned down the opportunity to rule out striking Iran directly, a significant escalation that the US has so far been keen to avoid. Senior Iraqi government figures, many of whom have close ties to Iran, demanded an end to US troop presence in their nation, arguing Washington was pushing the region to the edge of an abyss. The UN Security Council is scheduled to discuss the US strikes on Monday in New York during an extraordinary meeting. It is anticipated that US diplomats will state that US forces are in Iraq at the invitation of the Iraqi government and that the strikes are being carried out of self-defense. On Sunday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken left for the region for the 7th time since Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th. As the war nears its 5th month, he is expected to try once more to negotiate a hostage release agreement and eliminate the obstacles preventing help from reaching Gaza. Iran, on the other hand, cautioned the United States not to take action against the Iranian-flagged ship Bashad, which is based in the Red Sea and is thought by the U.S. to be supplying surveillance data to help guide Houthi onshore cruise missile strikes on nearby commercial vessels. Deployed in the Red Sea in official coordination with the International Maritime Organization to ensure the security of Iranian ships against pirates, according to Iran, was the statement made by the ship. Tehran stated that people who do such actions run the risk of being attacked by the ship. The Iranian warning followed. 36 Houthi targets in Yemen were struck by a 3rd wave of US and UK strikes on Saturday night, which led the terrorist group backed by Tehran to pledge to keep attacking commercial ships in the Red Sea to help the Palestinians in Gaza. 6 additional nations, including Bahrain, the Netherlands, and Canada, backed the attack. According to the US, the strike struck 13 sites around Yemen, hitting launchers, missile systems, and underground weapons storage facilities, among other tools the Houthis have utilized to target Red Sea ships. On Sunday night, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak declared that he would not hesitate to protect British lives and that the strikes were carried out in self-defense. The bigger geopolitical struggle pits Iran, which is committed to support those forces to put pressure on the US to leave the region and prevent Hamas from being destroyed in Gaza, against the US, which is trying to coerce Tehran into reining in its partner forces throughout the region. However, neither Washington nor Tehran wish to enter a direct confrontation. By instructing the US not to launch any direct attacks on Iranian territory, a stance supported by many US Republicans, Tehran has drawn a red line. To understand the whole situation, it's important to understand the history between these countries. Complex interactions between geopolitical, ideological, and historical variables have shaped US-Iranian relations as well as the larger dynamics of US involvement in the Middle East. The US-Iran relationship has seen phases of collaboration, conflict, and mistrust over the years, reflecting the larger opportunities and difficulties in the Middle East. An outline of the US's ties with Iran and its larger regional involvement is provided below. Historical background. Since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, which resulted in the fall of Iran's US-backed Shah and the foundation of an Islamic Republic, ties between the US and Iran have been tense. The following hostage crisis significantly strained bilateral relations and laid the groundwork for decades of antagonism. Iranian radicals took over the U.S. embassy in Tehran and kept American diplomats captive for 444 days. Conflict and confrontation. The U.S. and Iran found themselves on opposite sides of a number of regional crises and geopolitical rivalry after the Iranian Revolution. During the Iran-Iraq War, 1980 to 1988, Iran supported terrorist organizations throughout the Middle East, particularly Hezbollah in Lebanon. and Iran pursued a strategy of exporting its Islamic revolution. Nuclear policy and prohibitions. The US-Iran relationship has been quite problematic when it comes to Iran's nuclear program. International attempts, led by the US, have been made to curtail Iran's nuclear operations through diplomatic measures and economic penalties due to concerns about the country's nuclear ambitions and capacity to create nuclear weapons. The Iran nuclear deal, also known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action (JCPOA) of 2015, was a historic accord designed to restrict Iran's nuclear program in return for the lifting of sanctions. But the Trump administration unilaterally left the JCPOA in 2018, putting sanctions back on Iran and raising tensions between the two nations. Localized dynamics frequently through military interventions, support for allies, and efforts to oppose regional foes, the U.S. has significantly shaped Middle East geopolitics. The U.S. military's presence in the area, especially in nations like Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq, has sparked conflict and increased anti-American sentiment among some sections of the populace. Diplomatic activities and participation. There have occasionally been diplomatic overtures and attempts to defuse tensions between the US and Iran despite their history of antagonism. The Biden administration has made it clear that it intends to bring the JCPOA back, albeit with some changes, and that it is willing to resume diplomatic relations with Iran. However, persistent mistrust between the two parties and internal political concerns in both nations have hindered the negotiations. Upcoming prospects. The course of US-Iran relations and the US's larger involvement in the Middle East is yet unknown, as a number of factors influence their development. There may be a route to de-escalation and normalization of ties through the Biden administration's attempts to re-establish contact with Iran and renew the JCPOA. Nonetheless, obstacles including rivalry with other nations, domestic political dynamics in the US and Iran, and regional instability will persist in influencing the course of U.S. participation in the Middle East. In summary, the U.S.-Iranian relationship and U.S. involvement in the Middle East as a whole are shaped by a complex web of geopolitical rivalry, strategic objectives, and historical grievances. It will need diplomatic acumen, practical involvement, and a readiness to address the root causes of the region's tension and conflict to successfully navigate these difficulties. Historical links, geopolitical objectives, and regional events have defined the UK's relationship with Iran as well as the dynamics of its participation in the Middle East more broadly. An outline of the UK's involvement in the Middle East, including its connection with Iran, is provided below. Historical background. Since the colonial era, when British interests in the region were primarily motivated by strategic concerns including access to commercial routes, natural resources, and geopolitical power, the UK has had a long history of participation in the Middle East. Especially in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, British colonial ambitions were centered on Iran, formerly known as Persia. Contemporary relations. In particular, since the Iranian Revolution in 1979, the UK's relationship with Iran has been marked by ups and downs. After the U.S. Embassy in Tehran was taken during the hostage crisis, the UK was one of the Western nations to terminate diplomatic ties with Iran. Diplomatic ties were finally re-established, though not without difficulties and tense moments. Nuclear agreement and diplomatic interaction. The United Kingdom and other European nations were instrumental in the 2015 negotiations of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, also referred to as the Iran nuclear deal. Despite the U.S. exit from the JCPOA in 2018, the UK has supported diplomatic efforts to maintain the accord, which aim to limit Iran's nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of sanctions. Local engagement. In order to resolve local issues and advance Middle East stability, the UK has taken a proactive role in these efforts. It has taken part in worldwide initiatives to combat terrorism, promote peace negotiations, and deliver aid to war-torn nations including Yemen, Syria, and Iraq. Another indication of the UK's dedication to regional security and stability is its military presence in the area, especially in the Gulf. Economic and trade relations. The UK and several Middle Eastern nations, notably Iran, have strong economic links, with trade, investment, and energy cooperation being important aspects of bilateral relations. However, commerce and investment have faced difficulties as a result of the economic sanctions placed on Iran, mainly by the US and the EU. Upcoming prospects: many factors, such as regional dynamics, geopolitical upheavals, and diplomatic developments, will impact the UK's future engagement in the Middle East and its relationship with Iran. It will need diplomatic prowess, practical involvement, and a dedication to advancing peace, security, and development in the area to navigate these intricacies. Thank you for watching till the end. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure the notification bell is turned on so you never miss a video.